What is up, Impact Heroes? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rick Ornelas. Thank you for spending some time with us today because we know time's a valuable resource and we're going to make it worth your while. I appreciate each and every one of you, not just for listening, but for who you are. I know you're sparking change to make the world a better place every day, and I am humbled and grateful for your efforts. It takes all of us doing our part to spread positive change, and that's what this show is all about. Motivating you with stories of struggle, courage, and hope to empower you to make a difference in your life and the lives of others. Hey, hero community. We are looking to feature more amazing social impact heroes on our show, and I'll bet all you listeners out there know a few that deserve to be recognized. If you or anyone you know should be on our radar, then you absolutely have to nominate them to be an iSpark Change social impact hero. Just click the link in the show notes below to help us find out about more people that are doing great things. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking to our latest iSpark Change social impact hero, Brenda Warren, aka the Solutionist, aka the voice for the voiceless. So, Brenda, welcome to the iSpark Change podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful, Rick, and thank you for having me today.
Yeah, it's I've been really looking forward to this, Brenda, because I was on your show way
Mm-hmm.
back when. It seems like way back when, but it's probably been last year sometime. But
Last year.
um,
Mm-hmm.
it was last year. But I back then I was always thought, hey, I know a podcast is in me sometime down the road, and
Mm-hmm.
then I really enjoyed our conversation and everything that you stand for. So I knew that you were going to be a social impact hero when I launched the podcast. So that's why you're here today. So I'm super stoked about that. But so on that note, Brenda,
Mm-hmm.
we see you as someone who is spreading positive change in the world because your actions have a positive impact on humanity. And that's what we at iSpark Change call a social impact hero. You're making a difference in the world. You're spreading positive change with what you do. So every hero has an origin story. It's
Mm-hmm.
where they, who they are, where they came from, how they became who they are today, how they became that quote unquote hero. So what's your personal origin story? How did you get here, Brenda?
It's a long road to being a social impact hero. I like that title, but I'm not sure I'm a hero. Just another person, living their best life. But uh, my connection with you started because one day I found myself literally on the crisis hotline, Rick, and a gentleman talked me off the ledge. And when he did, he told me he could tell I was a person that liked to help others. So he wanted me to get up the next morning and find something to do. So I did. And that was the Be on TV challenge. And when I did, it changed my life. I began to uh, seek out ways to make a difference and not be so caught up in myself. I became the grand prize winner of the Be on TV challenge. I went on to have my own television show. Then I started my own YouTube channel. I started coaching other people on how to get off their couch. I created a method I call the TAPIN Method, which is a 5-step strategic plan that helps people get past their stuck points. And when I did that, it was life changing because it was no longer just about me. And that's how I became the solutionist and the voice for the voiceless.
Well, awesome, Brenda. Well, thank you for sharing that because, I know that's how we met, and that's what makes it, extra special for me because I've had success from there as well. So you talk about, yeah, I want to touch on something just before we continue because
Mm-hmm.
you kind of threw it out there before you started where you said you don't necessarily view yourself as a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And I view yourself that way because I know the impact that you've had on others. I know the impact that you had on me. And, every time we've spoken, every time I've been around you or seen you with other people, I've seen that positive impact, that influence.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously, you created the TAPIN method, you have your book and everything, but if you don't view yourself as a hero, so tell me, how do you view yourself? Like, how do you view yourself and your work?
I view myself as a servant leader, someone that just wants to serve and help other people live their best life, unapologetically unstoppable. Because so many of us are forgetting that life has so many things to offer, and we get caught up in the small minutia, forgetting to just take care of ourselves, to have a positive impact for our own selves first, so that we can have a positive impact for others.
Yeah, gotcha. And your name suits you well as the solutionist, right? Because you do help others. Um, you are that servant leader that you talk about. And I guess it's probably just semantics in the words we
Mhm.
use. You use servant leader, I use social impact hero, but in either case, it's leading with that heart of service. It's
Mhm.
leading with, it's leading with wanting to raise others up. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I know that's what I've seen from you, and that's how I try to live my life as well, which is probably why we clicked and we
Mhm.
connected, the way we did, because we both come from that service aspect. So do you think, Brenda, I know you that you were in the military for a long time. So do you think the service really came from being in the military, or did you always have that heart of service and that's why you went in the military?
I've always had that heart of service, Rick. I came in the military. I went into the United States Marine Corps. I did 20 years of active service. And I always wanted to be a Marine, because when I met my first Marine, he told me that they protect those who can't protect themselves. And I was all in. And so from that point on, at 8 years old, I knew what I was going to be when I grew up. There was no doubt in my mind. And I went on to become a United States Marine, served for 20 years. And Marines are all about service.
Yeah, for sure. So okay, so let me get this straight. So you were told that was when you were 8 years old. You
Yes.
realized that's okay. So one of the things I'm fascinated why I call social impact hero is because if you think about any stories you read or movies you see, there's that
Mhm.
hero's journey that people are
Mhm.
on, where they,
Mhm.
they have their origin, like we talked about, where they came from. And you started your origin with the Be on TV boot camp. My guess is it probably started maybe back when you were 8 years old.
Yeah.
That's when you got bit by the spider, if you will, like if you were Spider-Man. That's
Yeah.
started way back then.
Hmm.
um so tell me, in the time, like from 8 to joining the military, to the age that you joined the military, were you going through a period where you were just preparing, like all preparing that you were going to be in the military, or building the person that you were? Or talk to me more about
Oh,
how the
absolutely.
character was built and everything.
Rick, I come from a long line of serial entrepreneurs. So I had my first business at the age of 9. I've been doing business plans since I was 12 years old. I used to do grown folks' taxes and business plans, and strategize how they can improve and grow their businesses when I was 12 and 13 years old. I bought my first house when I was 16. So I've always had the entrepreneur bug. And then on top of that, I volunteered at my church, I volunteered in my community. I've been serving since I was big enough to walk, because that's just the way my family rolls. So that was in me. But yeah, during that whole time, from the time I knew that the Marine Corps, because honestly, before that day, I thought I was going to grow up to be a lawyer. I wanted to help people with their law problems. And then I thought I'd be a Marine and a lawyer. And I did do some legal work in the military. But the truth is, once I met that Marine that day on the Naval Yard in Philadelphia, there was no doubt in my mind that when I grew up, I was going to be a Marine.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I have to circle back to one thing you said. You bought your first house at the age of 16.
Yes.
So tell me about that, just because I'm super curious about that. I don't know anyone that's bought a house at 16.
Well, what happened, Rick, was in my neighborhood, I was learning about finances and everything, and I already had a lot of money saved up. And they were rebuilding our community, and they had the buy a house for $1 program, if you fix the house up. And my dad was a construction worker, and he flipped houses and things of that nature. So I thought, I can buy a house. And so I went down there to get my first house. My first house cost $10,000. I was really excited about being able to do that and to fix it up and then to sell it. So I got the real estate bug very early.
Wow. That's an incredible story in itself, just that you're buying a house. First that they had that program, back then that they had that program, and then that you were able to buy your first house, $10,000, fix it up and sell it and, help in the community. I mean, that's really cool in itself for sure. So Brenda, one of the things that, we have an acronym for hero. And the first part is the H, which is a hero honors their purpose. And it sounds to me from, what you've been sharing with us that you've really honored your purpose kind of your whole life, is what it sounds like. But tell me, how do you, since you didn't necessarily view yourself as a hero, how do you feel that you honor, first, what do you feel is your true purpose? And then how do you honor that purpose?
I think my true purpose is helping people see their own unique genius. Since I was a little girl, I've been what people in the religious community call a seer. So I can see things people often miss. I say that right in my intro when I'm doing interviews. And because I can see things that other people often miss, I'm always amazed that people can't see their own greatness. So I believe my purpose is to encourage people to step out of the box, move past their limiting beliefs, and stop narrating those limiting beliefs to themselves. I tell people often, you get to write the story you want to live. So if you're going to write the story, you have the pen, make it an epic adventure. And the truth is, Rick, I forgot that for myself, because sometimes when you're a servant, you can serve so many other people that you neglect your own self. And for a time, I forgot, I lost myself. And then when I got back to a place where I rediscovered who I was and what I needed to thrive and not just survive, I was determined to be the voice for the voices for all those unnecessary silences that are no longer able to speak up for themselves, and hopefully to prevent any more unnecessary silences. So those people that are still here will begin to tap into their greatness, walk in their purpose, and live lives unapologetically unstoppable.
Yeah, that's an awesome purpose. I mean, that is truly a beautiful purpose. And I think you do that very, very well. And I think one thing that I'll notice, at least I'll give you a little compliment, is that I think you do that naturally. I think you do that where it kind of effortlessly, and I don't mean that it's not hard or not challenging. What I mean is that it's not forced, that it just comes, that it just comes real. And I'd say for me, I had to learn that. I think my parents, they always, service was always something that we were taught when we were young. And I remember when I was, in high school, going to a private Catholic high school, and we couldn't really afford it. So we had to do service hours to help pay for our tuition, putting away chairs in the auditorium and all this stuff, which was, for me as a teenager, it's kind of humiliating and kind of embarrassing and everything when you're the kid that has to do that. And, and here I'm going to school with like celebrities' kids and things like that, where we lived and, near Hollywood. And I kind of rejected it, I guess, is that I rejected it in a sense, and that I had to grow into it, that I knew it was always a part of me, and it was always there because it was embedded from my parents from a very young age. So kind of like you, it was there, but I pushed back on it and I fought it. And it wasn't until like really when I started having a family and kids and everything that then, okay, now it's not about you anymore. I mean, I had been, selfish, and then now, hey, it's not about you. Now you got to take care of a little life, that you created. And then that's where the service really started to, come out and then to flourish, of course, years later. But your path was different. Your path was just kind of always there, always honoring your purpose, I guess. I probably didn't honor mine for years, and you were honoring yours for a long time, which is great.
And I would say what's interesting about that too, I'm glad you mentioned that it's not always easy, but it becomes a challenge when you start using your purpose and start charging, because there's such a sense of responsibility to help people and to not, for lack of a better term, not to prostitute your gifts. And oftentimes when you're a server, you're so used to doing it, you don't know when to turn it off. So when I started coaching people and charging people for it, I had to find that balance. And that was a little hard for me in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree 100%. And it's interesting you mentioned that, because the E in hero is a hero engages their audience in their mission, and they share their mission with others, and they share that purpose, and they share those gifts with the world, that they don't, that they don't keep them to themselves. And so talk about that challenge a little bit of engaging others in your mission, like how they've accepted it, how they've not accepted it, or maybe people have fought where they want it for free, where they don't want to pay for your knowledge and expertise. I mean, talk about that a little bit.
I don't even think that it wasn't that people didn't want to pay for my expertise. I just was failing to charge for my expertise. And what I had to learn to do was, in the beginning, I did not even set a price. I simply would say, if what I've done for you was of value, send something to my Cash App, which worked out very well for me because I'm a money magnet. And what I found very quickly is that people would pay me a lot more than what I would have asked for if I had set a price. So once that went on for a while, I kind of gauged what people were willing to pay for what I do. And what I do is unique in the sense that people have coaches, and oftentimes coaches are all about what the coach wants. But I truly do work on what is it that my client needs, what is the purpose. And so there's no cookie cutter with me. It's all unique to individuals. Some people need help with their finances, Rick. Some need help with their spiritual practices. Some needs help with their relationship. I use a mind, body, and soul approach. I want to look at the whole person and find out what exactly is it that they need to tap into to release their unique genius so that they can live the life that is their best life. Because what's the best life for you is not necessarily a best life for me or for somebody else. And I want people to feel free to unapologetically embrace the life they want to live. And I'll give you one quick story. I had a young lady who was the top of her game in corporate America, but what she really wanted to do was paint. And she could not bring herself to do it because she was so worried about offending or hurting everybody else around her, because they spent a lot of money for her to go to college to do what she was doing. But when she finally stepped away from corporate America and began to do what it is that really lights her up, she made more money out there doing that than she did when she was in corporate America. Because it's my true belief is that when you do what you love, I mean, really do what you love, and you're walking in your unique genius, nobody can touch you. Nobody.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And it's, it took me a long time to really get there. And I think for a lot of people, they never get there. Is that they, as Les Brown would say, they go to their grave with the dreams and the ambitions that they had, and they're never realized because they never share that. And I know you do a great job of this. The R for hero is that a hero ripples their message out to spread that positive change, that they share it with others, and that it creates those ripples that we talk about, that it's a small action and then, or a big action, but an action, and then that leads to this ripple effect. So talk to us about the TAPIN method, because I think that's really the key of how you're, or a main way that you're helping to spread that ripple effect as a hero. You are a hero, whether you believe it or not. As a hero,
you're all in my lane now, because I love the ripple effect, and you've heard me speak about it at UAL, the Unfair Advantage Live, and any place you've ever heard me speak, because I honestly believe that you're part of my ripple effect. When you impact somebody's life, that's legacy, and most people don't understand that, because all it takes is you pour something into me, I pour something into you, then you pour something into the next person. That's the ripple effect. And that's exactly what TAPIN will do for individuals, because TAPIN is just an acronym for the 5-step program I created. The T stands for transformation. It starts with your mindset, Rick. You have to have a mindset to be able to say that I'm going to change from what I'm doing to where I want to go or what I want to be. And then the A is all about announcing your intentions to make that change. And it's also about accountability, because you can't do it alone or else you'd already done it. And then the P is about preparing for the breakthrough that you say you want to make. The I is where we imagine. I want you to dream bigger, then dream bigger than that. We're going to use visualization in that step. And then N is when people get to nurture, because it's so important that you encourage and that you care for the dreams you say you want, because you can't leave it up to chance. And when you do that and you tap into your own unique genius and you begin to impact those around you, the ripple effect will be phenomenal.
That's so cool. I love the acronym, and I love what each one stands for. So knowing the way people are, knowing human nature,
Mm-hmm.
knowing how, being a coach myself and dealing with people, there's always going to be challenges when you're working with an individual, or
Absolutely.
things that they're going to present, like you said earlier, the limiting beliefs, the stuff like that. So tell me, Brenda, if you could pick out of, any, the transformation or the nurturing, any of them, if you could pick any of them, where would you say people have struggled with the most? Which one has been the biggest stumbling block or roadblock out of the five steps?
The biggest roadblock out of the 5 steps is usually the I, believe it or not. And that's where you get to imagine the life you want to live. Because most people will say, oh, it's the mindset. No, because I usually can get people to make the shift to begin to believe that it's possible. But then once I tell them, now I want you to sit back and really imagine that. I mean, I want you to, if like, let's use weight loss. That's always an easy one, especially nowadays for people to get with. If they
Yeah.
tap into weight loss, getting them to make the mindset shift that weight loss is possible is easy, because I can prove that it's possible with all the commercials. You see people all over YouTube, they were this weight, now they're that weight. Because it's not the I want to go from here to there is what tapping is about. It's that gap in the middle. That's where the fear hits in, and fear is just future events already ruined, where they can't even imagine themselves at their goal weight or their goal size. I always tell people, throw your scales out there, the devil. They're not real. Look at your measurements. How do you feel? If I could get people to understand, it's not about a number on a scale. Sexy is not a dress size. Just seriously tap in to the fact that you only get one body. All of us are uniquely and beautifully, wonderfully made. We're designer original, so we're not going to look like everybody else, you know. And just if you be the best version of yourself at whatever weight that is. And I'll full disclosure, I'm 5'9.5", and I currently weigh 226 pounds. But I'm tall, so the weight looks different than on a little woman that maybe weigh that much. I used to would be like under the table, afraid to tell you I weigh that much. But now, I feel good at this weight. And I look good too. I'm fit, fierce, and fabulous. So I no longer am tied to the scale. That was a limiting belief in my past, that if I didn't weigh 150 pounds, I wasn't worth the time of day it take to call me a woman. But that's a lie. With all of this, 226 pounds of me, yeah, I'm fit, fierce, and fabulous. And I don't apologize for it anymore.
Yeah.
That's about taking that shift, because see, before I could not even imagine that this would be a weight that I could embrace my body just like it is and be comfortable. And that's usually where the biggest fear lies. Imagining what's possible, and then imagine seeing yourself really there.
Yeah. You know what? I wouldn't have necessarily thought that it would be that, but it completely makes sense. It completely
Mhm.
makes sense because it is a part of that mindset, which you mentioned at the beginning. It is a part of that mindset, because what happens with, like I touched on earlier, is that most people, they and you said they don't dream big enough. The ones that dream truly big are the ones that change the world, like the Steve
Mhm.
Jobs of the world, or JFK saying we're going to the moon, or
Right.
Martin Luther King Jr. With his "I have a dream." Like, those are the people that they make the change. They make that true
Mhm.
positive change in the world. Those big positive changes, in the world, and so for you to help people tap into that, and to see that, okay, they can, it can be as simple as imagining and then going out and creating it. That's really cool. That's really great. And that is part of the hero engaging people, and that those ripples definitely come from those actions. So that's awesome.
Can I say one more thing about that? Because
Yeah.
another one, besides weight loss, usually the other one that people struggle with is imagining themselves being debt free or financially independent. And when you're an entrepreneur, that's something too, because we can see things piling on. And I'm telling you, as someone that used to live paycheck to paycheck before the paycheck, if you had told me that I could live totally debt free, I would have told you were on hallucinogenic drugs, because everybody's got some kind of debt, because that's what I was told. But you don't have to live that way. And it's just about making some small changes, changing your mindset and removing the limiting beliefs, and stop again narrating those limiting beliefs to yourself that say you can't be debt free, because it truly is possible. I was a shopaholic. I was in debt so bad I could not borrow money from my mama. Okay. And now today I don't owe anybody anything. I'm almost done paying my like regular debt. I do have a mortgage, but I'm going to have that paid off in a matter of a few months. So I'm not going to owe anybody anything. Just going to have regular daily, maybe phone bill, cell phone like that, but no debt.
Yeah.
How amazing is that?
That's
When I've been
incredible.
told my whole life that is not possible.
Yeah.
And I have the receipt. So it's like one of those things where I went from living like this, the American lie, not the American dream, the lie that we cannot live that way, to understanding it's just a math problem. If you don't spend more than you have, it's easy. But we're not taught how to spend consciously. We're not taught how to let our money work for us and not us work for the money.
Yeah.
And that again is about not being able to imagine, not about mindset, because you have to make the mindset shift. But imagine what your life would be back if you didn't owe nobody really nothing but love, or maybe just a mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. And
That's the question.
I believe you'll get there 100%. I mean, you're the person that bought a house at the age of 16, so I guarantee you can get to having your mortgage paid off here around the corner. Yeah, that's fantastic. So tell us, Brenda, I'm sure in your journey, there's, as we were talking about, the journey will have its ups and downs and everything.
Mhm.
So what was the most impactful advice that someone gave you along your journey? Whether it's recently or, or back when you're younger, what's some impactful advice that they gave you on your journey that really helped, steer you in the right direction?
I would say the most impactful that I've gotten just in the past few months was to take my own advice. For years I've been teaching, preaching, and showing other people how to live their best lives now. And now for me means no opportunity wasted. But yet I was living in the shadows and afraid because of fear. I was ruining all the future events in my life because I was so afraid somebody would notice me, or that somebody would see that because of my brain injury that I slur my words, or somebody would notice that I was obese, or somebody would notice that I was a girl, or that I was black, or whatever my narration of limiting beliefs was. And one day someone said, "Why don't you take the advice you give others?" And my mind was blown.
It sounds so simple, right? It sounds so simple, like, hey, you're telling everybody this all the time, and then what's always so simple isn't easy to do. What's simple isn't always is the easiest thing for us as human beings. And I'm sure you're grateful to that individual that shared that with you, and that helped you to open your eyes and say, okay, I know all this stuff. I know what I should be doing. Why aren't I doing it? And I know I was the same way. I know the same thing has happened for me in my past as well, where I I mean, as a CrossFit coach, there's plenty of times where I'm showing people, oh, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And then, it comes to my workout and I'm like, oh, wait, I'm not doing that. I'm not practicing what I'm preaching. I'm not practicing what I'm preaching.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, maybe I better, maybe I better do that. And I think Gandhi is this famous story of Gandhi where he had a mother had brought a young child to see him, waited for, days to see him and get in front of him with her child that she was struggling with because he wouldn't stop eating sweets.
Mm-hmm.
And so Gandhi said, okay, I need you to go back, or to go home and come back in 2 weeks. And so she comes back in 2 weeks. She waits again to see him and finally gets in front of him. And she gets in front of him and he turns to the little boy and he says, you need to listen to your mother. You need to stop eating sweets. They're bad for your health. Don't do that anymore. And the mother says, I traveled back and forth. I waited all those hours, days to see you. And that's the only advice that you're going to tell him. You're just going to tell him not to do it. Why didn't you just tell him that the first time I was here? Why'd you make me come back 2 weeks later? And he said, 2 weeks ago, I was still eating sweets. So I had to stop eating sweets before I could tell him not to.
Wow. Yeah. And you know what's funny, Rick, about the taking your own advice? The reality is it shifted so much for me because, right, like, for example, in social media, we're watching people that do what we do, podcasters and stuff, and you hear about imposter syndrome, you hear about FOMO, the fear of missing out, and all these different things. And I had to begin to tell myself what I told my clients. When you get up in the morning, do you like you? So every morning when I get up, I do my mirror work, Rick, and I make sure I'm the first like of the day that I give myself. If nobody else likes me, I know I'm good because I like me. And when I did that, again, game changer, I began to tell myself, that's why I have Tell Yourself Tuesdays. I tell myself the things that I tell my clients so that I can do the mindset shift along with them. I tell myself that I'm worthy. I tell myself that I'm capable. I tell myself that I'm fit, fierce, and fabulous. When you do those things and you begin to say them enough, you begin to believe them. And when you begin to believe them, then you have the behavior of belief. Your behavior will begin to match your beliefs, and then you will see the changes slowly begin to come.
Yeah, that's so true. And one of the areas that I work on a lot with people is in creating habits. And that's essentially what you're doing. You're just creating a positive habit, a good habit to follow for yourself, to where you're reinforcing that belief, and then it just becomes natural. I mean, it's just something that you do without really thinking that now, okay, this is just part of who I am. And that's, yep. And when you can do that, when you can kind of turn that, your brain, well, first you have to get it off autopilot, but then you want to put it on autopilot, on the right kind of autopilot, right? The right kind of thing, right kind of belief. Then that's the good way, because then now it's not a focus anymore for you. Now you're like, oh, I already believe that, I'm fabulous and that I can accomplish anything and reach my dreams. And yeah, that's a wonderful place to be. It's a very powerful place to be.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us, Brenda, so how can people find out more about your work? How can they connect with you and learn more about what you're doing?
They can connect with me on Instagram at Brenda the Solutionist. That's Soul, SOUL, or at my website, BrendaTheSolutionist.com. Both of those places have information about me, and I'm always up for meeting new people, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we will make sure that we put that in the show notes so everybody can connect with you and find out more about the TAPIN method and everything that you're working on. So, as we near the end of the show here, I want to just share that our goal at iSpark Change is to positively impact 1 billion people in the next 5 years through our community and through our work. And we know we can't do this alone. And, we need the help of leaders like you. So thank you, because you're helping show people the way. You're helping to show people that, just because they're one individual, that they can still make a difference. They can still positively impact people. And, they don't have to feel as I did that, oh, I'm just myself. I'm just too small, that I'm not going to make a difference. So we value your thoughts as a social impact hero. So I'm going to ask you to peer into the crystal ball that we have here at iSpark Change. And I want you to tell me, what can the world become if everyone believes that they can individually have an impact on the future? What do you view as as our future world if that happens?
I think if everyone believes they could make an impact on the future, they would start by understanding that we're all uniquely and fearfully made. We are going to have to learn to agree, to disagree without being disagreeable, so that we can have more collaboration, more co-creation, and become a fully, a fully operational community that supports one another to reach goals that will positively impact each and every one of us.
Well, very well said, Brenda. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. And also, thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing your heart and wisdom with our audience. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show, Brenda.
Thank you for having me, Rick.
So, iSpark Change Heroes, just know that it's the stories that connect us all. And we loved hearing Brenda's story today. So, Brenda, you truly are an iSpark Change social impact hero. We thank you for coming on we thank you for coming on the iSpark Change podcast. Remember, impact heroes, every positive action can be a spark moment that has a ripple effect that spreads far beyond the initial act. So go out there and spark change. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, then please smash that 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify and leave a review. We value your comments and we want to hear from you in the community. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and we'll see you next week on the iSpark Change podcast.